Welcome back to the channel. We're back with our Commander deck profile today with Sonic the Hedgehog. For 1 blue, red, and white, we get a 2/4 with haste, where we gotta go fast. Whenever Sonic the Hedgehog attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control with a flash or haste. And then whenever a creature you control with flash or haste deals damage, create a tapped treasure token. So that'll help us speed up our game plan, giving us additional mana there as well with those treasure tokens. So, and along with having plenty of ways to give our creatures haste here in order to make sure they can attack the turn they come down and get those bonuses off those +1/+1 counters, along with other bonuses they may get from those +1/+1 counters here in this deck. But that's going to be the general overview of this deck. We're going to try to cover all the Sonic commanders that have been announced here recently, but let's get into this one card by card. Start off, we have an Arcane Signet for that mana. Binding of Dasa, we're going to be wanting to deal damage to our opponent, and we're going to be doing it so fast that they're not going to have things to block with, so let's use that to our advantage to draw some cards. And also, creatures your opponents control attack this turn if able, making so that our opponents have to attack so that they don't have blockers, so we can get those treasure tokens and draw those cards. Bladed Cells, equipped creature has Myriad, means that we can deal damage to multiple opponents, because it's whenever a creature you control deals damage to an opponent, making so that we want to make sure we could deal damage to each opponent, so we get the treasure token for each opponent we deal damage to. Commander Sphere for some additional mana, Fellwar Stone for some additional mana, Hammer of Perforos. We want to make sure that we give all our creatures haste. We don't want to just give +1/+1 counters to some creatures. We want it on all the creatures. Infantry Shield, equipped creature has Menace and Mobilize X, where X is its power. Those creatures will then also have the haste off of them, thanks to Hammer Perforos or other cards that we may have on them, allowing us to, get some +1/+1 counters on them if maybe we don't have a way to sacrifice them. Leyline Axe, equipped creature gets Double Strike and +1/+1 along with Trample, giving us some additional stats there, giving us some additional abilities to deal that combat damage to our opponents. Lightning Grease, another way to give our stuff haste. We have plenty of it in here. Slicer, Hired Muscle, another creature with Double Strike and haste. You can also keep passing him around so that your opponents could start swinging at each other. Super fun card. It also has the ability to transform into Slicer, High Speed Antagonist, Living Metal, First Strike, Haste. He's still a creature with haste at that point. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, convert it at the end of combat back into normal Slicer so you can keep passing it there around. Soul Ring for some mana, Swiftfoot Boots, another way to get some stuff haste. Sword of Truth and Justice, deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, and proliferate. So we're going to make sure that we have, and also has protection from white and blue for this one, giving us that our creatures with the haste can deal damage, giving us those treasure tokens, also giving those additional +1/+1 counters onto all our creatures there. Talisman Conviction, Talisman Creativity for some additional mana. Fire Crystal, another way to give our stuff some haste, and also maybe create a token that's a copy of a creature we control in order to make sure that we could deal some additional damage. Ozolith, whenever one of our creatures with counters on it gets removed, we have to put those counters onto the Ozolith instead, so that we could then put them onto something other than that, maybe like when it comes back. The Regalia, it's a haste. It's a legendary artifact, which will become a creature anytime you crew it, allowing you to deal that damage to your opponent, get some lands, get some treasures, putting you ahead by 2 mana already. Wayfarer's Bauble for some additional lands on top of that as well. And for our creatures, we have Abzan Battle Priest. Creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them have lifelink, allowing you that additional life gain there. Some additional benefits just off of the +1/+1 counters we're going to be putting on all our creatures, since we're going to be giving them all haste with some of our other abilities anyway. Abzan Falconer gets all those creatures flying as well. Aki Battle Squad. Whenever one or more modified creatures control attack, aka our creatures with +1/+1 counters on them, untap all of them, and after this combat phase, just an additional combat phase. Only happens once each turn, but 2 battle phases sometimes is all you need. And if they keep dealing that damage to a player, you keep getting those treasure tokens. Oh wait, I think I may have actually read that wrong. Whenever a creature you control okay, so it's each creature at that point. So it doesn't matter how many opponents we deal that damage to. Whoops. Kate, Fame Mechanist. Fabricate 1, whenever this creature enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on it, or create a 1/1 servo. Other non-token creatures you control have Fabricate 1 as well, getting those additional counters. Eventually you can pay the little bit of mana there to proliferate. Envoy of Ancestors, another way to give our creatures those +1/+1 counters there. Modified creatures you control have life. Sorry, it only gives us +1/+1 counters. It's another way to give our creatures lifelink though, means that we have those benefits, all those +1/+1 counters. Esper Sentinel, normally your opponents will have to pay to 1 in order to have you not draw a card. But if we give it haste with like maybe Lightning Greaves or Swiftfoot Boots or Hammer Perforos, they'll be getting those +1/+1 counters galore in order to make sure that they have to pay more than that to not let us draw the cards. Generous Pop. Whenever one or more +1/+1 counters are put on this creature, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. AK, since he'll have that haste off of like Lightning Greaves, Swiftfoot Boots, something else, he'll be getting those +1/+1 counters from that, and then you put those onto all your creatures, so you're getting 2 +1/+1 counters on everything anytime you attack, if you have the Fire Crystal out. Ginger Brute, another creature with haste that is pretty good at dealing damage because you can make it so you pay 1, can't be blocked except by creatures with haste. Super easy to get down early off because there's only 1 mana there as well. Grateful Apparition deals damage to a player or planeswalker. Proliferate. We want to deal damage anyway, so let's give it a way to swing turn comes down with that haste and then proliferate those counters that you just got. Herald of Secret Streams, creatures you control +1/+1 counters on them can't be blocked. So if they have the haste plus the +1/+1 counters on them, you get that free damage in to get those free treasure tokens. Lae'zel of Lacket's Champion. If you put a +1/+1 counter onto something, that's all that matters for a stack, basically. You get an additional 1 of those instead. So, I mean, if you're getting those +1/+1 counters on them, you get 2 instead, then you get to proliferate eventually. You're getting 4 essentially, because proliferating does still count as putting a counter onto something, so you still get the 2 off of that. Liberator, Urza's Battle Adapter. Flash, flying, you may cast color spells or artifact spells as though they had flash. You have quite a few in the stack. Whenever you cast a spell, if a mana was spent to cast a spell is greater than this card's power, put a +1/+1 counter on this card. Also has flash, so this is free +1/+1 counters anyway. It's super helpful there. Polymorph Prodigy keeps getting you some draw power here. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell with mana value less than this creature's power, draw a card. So if we keep getting those +1/+1 counters on it between its evolve ability and its haste ability that we'll be having with like Fire Crystal or something, it helps us get a whole bunch of draw power off there. Professional Fate, I think I meant Captain Lannery Storm here actually. Whoops. But yeah, Captain Lannery Storm is what's meant to be here. Another good creature with haste, getting us those treasure tokens, allowing us to swing in. This is also pretty good because as the mana is letting you swing in, he'll have the haste eventually with Fire Crystal. And yeah, he gets 2 treasure tokens out there at that point. And you can sacrifice a treasure token, and it's the top card of your library. Research Thief. Whenever an artifact creature you control deals common damage to a player, draw a card. We don't have that many, but we have enough where it's worth it. Sephiroth, Fallen Hero. Sacrifice one of our creatures with those +1/+1 counters onto it to get it back, and also makes all of our creatures with those +1/+1 counters on them into 7/5s, making those some quite strong creatures. Solemn Simulacrum, another way to get some additional mana. Always like to see it. Especially since we're in Jeskai, we're going to need the mana. Kadara's Crusade. Another way to get some +1/+1 counters onto our creatures. Anytime a creature enters, get those counters onto them. Jump starting our plan a little bit early. Echoing Assault, creature tokens you control have Menace. And whenever you attack a player, choose a target non-token creature you control attacking that player. Create a token that's a copy of it that's attacking them as well. Sacrifice at the beginning and step. So you do something like Solemn Simulacrum, you get the same like enter the battlefield ability. Or like Generous Pop, you get those 2 +1/+1 counters onto everything because you're going to be getting it there anyway. Fervor, creatures you control have haste. We have a lot of those. Frostcliff Siege. You don't care about the first one, but whenever creatures you control get +1/+0 and trample and haste, we want to make sure our creatures also have a way to deal the damage because we want to make sure they deal the damage to get those treasure tokens and not just get the +1/+1 counters and sit there and get blocked by 1/1s. The first ability is whenever you cast one or more creatures. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. So you get draw cards and get those treasure tokens. So it could be helpful, but the second one tends to be more helpful. Mass Hysteria. All creatures have haste, not just yours, now your opponents as well. Resourceful Defense. Whenever a permanent you control leaves the battlefield, have had counters on it, put those counters onto this card, pay 5 mana to move those all into something. Could be super useful, especially if you had a whole bunch of things getting removed, and eventually you basically turn Sonic into Supersonic if you have way to give it trample. Rising of the Day, another way to give them haste. And Cigar to summons. Creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them, aka most of our stuff at a certain point. Give them 4/4 with flying and our angels in addition to their other types. We wanted a way to make everything into a chow. So, angel is close enough, right? Or whatever the other chow is. Evil chow. But yeah, it also makes it harder to block your stuff so that your opponent, has a hard time blocking it. What can I say? A chrome as well. Another way to give our stuff flying to make it harder to block in order to get those treasure tokens. Offer you can't refuse for some additional treasure tokens along with some counter spells. Blacksmith skills, target permanent control, gains hexproof and indestructible to end turn. We just want to make sure we have a way to protect Sonic so we keep those +1/+1 counters and treasure tokens coming. Boros Charm, either some protection or some removal, depends what you need at the time. Chaos Warp for some removal. Counterspell for a counterspell. Dawn's Truce for that protection there. Dovin's Veto for another counterspell. Generous Gift, Path to Exile, Stroke to Midnight, Sword Splashers, all different forms of removal there. And an Unbreakable Formation to give our stuff indestructible for that protection. Austere Command for some board wipe. Same with Blast from Sack, Damning Verdict, Farewell. Vandal Blast for removal of all of our opponent's artifacts. And Wave Goodbye to remove all of our opponent's creatures, but none of ours, because we had +1/+1 counters on all our stuff. And then Requisition Raid, another way to potentially be removal, but you could normally put the +1/+1 counters onto all your stuff. I hope I went fast enough for a Sonic video here. But that's the general, it's a card by card of the deck. If you guys have, and also Legion Leadership, and turn double target creature's power against first strike as well. A card, or they'll make it something hard to block. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you liked it, leave it down there in the comment section letting us know. And like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for tomorrow. We're probably covering either Shadow, Knuckles, Amy, Tails, Dr. Eggman I'm still working on. But hope you have a great rest of the day. Welcome back to the channel. We're back with a Shadow the Hedgehog deck profile, but I can't talk like that the whole video because my voice will start hurting. Shadow the Hedgehog is a black, red for 4/2 with haste, and whenever another card you control with flash or haste dies, you get to draw a card, and each spell you cast has split second as long as you use mana from an artifact to cast it. So we have plenty of artifacts that'll tap for some mana in order to give us some mana to give our spell split second. We have plenty of ways to create treasure tokens in order to make sure that we have other ways to get that ability off. We have cards that'll give our creatures haste and no ways to give them flash really, but ways to benefit off that so that when they do get removed we get to draw those cards, but we're mostly focusing on the treasure aspect of this one. But that's the general overview of the deck. If you guys like it, let's get into it card by card in a second. But if you guys do like the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and comment as to who you'd like to see as the next deck profile. It'll probably be the rest of the Sonic Commanders first, but we'll get into other ones later. Starting off though, we have Arcane Signet. Tap, 1 mana of any color. Some ramp is always helpful. Bolster Citadel, you may cast cards from the top of your library by paying life instead of mana, allowing us to basically get going a lot faster than we could have if we didn't have this, especially with all the cards that we had that give our stuff haste, potentially giving us a way to win the game before our opponents get stuff off the block. Bucknard's Ever Full Purse, 2 mana, pay 1, roll a d4, get that many treasure tokens. I mean, you could pay 1 mana to get 1 treasure token. Think about it. It's only going to go positive. But it's still helpful even if you do get that 1 treasure, because you can then use that for Shadow's chaos control ability to make sure that your stuff can't be countered due to that split second ability. Chamil, the Inner Sun, spells you control can't be countered anyway. Maybe if we have this on the board, but it says 6 mana, so it'll take a little bit longer than Shadow to get on the board. And at the beginning of your end step, discover 5 exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card with mana value 5 or less. You have to cast it for free. That doesn't count as casting a spell using mana from an artifact because you basically cast it for free, so that could still be countered. Inspiring Sanctuary. Non-artifact spells you control have improvise. Your artifacts can help cast that spell. Each artifact you tap after you're done activating mana abilities, pay for 1. So, maybe you could pay for the split second ability by just tapping your stuff, like your Lightning Greaves that doesn't care about being tapped. Lightning Greaves want to make sure we give our creatures haste in some way, shape, or form in order to get that little bit of draw power. And Lightning Greaves is a really good way to do that, because this way, even if they do get removed, we still get that draw power and get to put them somewhere else. Liquid Metal Torque, tap, add a colorless, or target non-land permanent you control becomes an artifact in addition to its other types. Some of the other stuff we have to give us mana. Maybe it wasn't an artifact, so now we can make it into an artifact to give it that split second ability. Mind Stone for some mana, Ractal Signet for some mana, same Soul Ring, Talisman of Indulgence, and Wayfarer's Bauble. Those are all just for mana. Swift of Boots, another way to give our stuff haste. Does cost 1 to equip on Lightning Greaves, but still sticks around, giving your other stuff haste there as well. Fire Crystal also gives our stuff haste, and it sticks around, you'll need to re-equip it. Also reduces the cost to cast our red spells. Herbrest Forge. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put an oil counter onto Herbrest Forge and create an X11 Phyrexian Horror creature tokens with trample and haste, aka when they do get removed, they'll still draw you those cards. And what was I saying? Where X is the number of oil counters on this card, sacrifice them at the beginning of your next end step, but that doesn't matter to us because we'll get to draw the cards off them. Because it says creature you control, not non-token creature. Can be manufacturer. Since we're going to be creating plenty of treasure tokens, well, may as well create some clues and foods off those as well. Ancient Copper Dragon. Whenever this deals combat damage to a player, roll a d20, get that number of treasure tokens. Could be 20, could be 1. All depends on how much damage you dealt to your opponent. Well, not doesn't how much damage you dealt to your opponent. Depends on how good you're at rolling dice. Crime Novelist. Whenever you sacrifice an artifact, aka one of your treasure tokens, put a +1/+1 counter onto this card, and add red mana. So we get the red mana off of this card, and then we get the black mana off of our treasure token, giving us plenty of ways to get that split second ability. And enough mana to do basically whatever we want. Disciple of the Vault. Whenever an artifact is put into your graveyard, aka one of our treasure tokens, you may have target opponent lose a life. We like to see it. During Courage, once again, we want still some ways to give our creatures haste. We are in the Sonic universe. Everything has to have haste. Ginger Brute, another creature that has haste. Good to not be blocked. Also easy to sacrifice for that 2 mana in order to get that draw power if you need it at a certain point. Goldspan Dragon. Whenever Goldspan Dragon attacks or becomes the target of a spell, create a treasure token. We're going to use it to attack a whole bunch. He also has haste there as well. This way, if he does get removed, we're fine with that because we still get to draw. But we don't want him removed because treasures tap for 2 mana instead of just the 1. Giving us plenty of mana to do plenty of stuff. Goro, Disciple of Ryusei. Creatures you control have haste. That's going to be the main ability that we care about because we don't really modify creatures in this deck. Hedron Detonator. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, deal 1 damage to target opponent. I mean, that's fine with us. 1 damage is 1 damage, and sometimes that's all the damage that you need. And then eventually you pay 2, sacrifice 2 artifacts, exile top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. I mean, a little bit of extra draw power without being actual draw power, but we're going to tend to want our treasures to stick around and keep dealing that little bit of damage by a little bit of damage. Ingenious Artillerist. Whenever one of our artifacts enter the battlefield under your control, deal that much damage to each opponent. Yeah, 1 damage by 1 damage is 1 damage. Jury, Master of Ravu. Whenever you sacrifice a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter onto this creature, aka all the treasure tokens are going to be sacrificing. Making it, he becomes pretty strong. Then eventually, if you sacrifice him, you get to draw power off Shadow, and that's not all, folks. You'll also get to deal damage to equal to his power to any target, aka the opponent who's been getting in your hair. Colleen, Reclusive Painter. Enters the battlefield, create a treasure token. We want ways to create treasure tokens, not just ways to use treasure tokens, right? Other creatures you control enter the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on them for each mana from a treasure token spent to cast them. So not only can those spells not be countered, but now they're stronger. And they have haste from some, like Fire Crystal, maybe. Where were we? Layella, Blade Reforged, good creature with haste there. And whenever she attacks, exile top card of your library, may play a card this turn. And whenever one or more cards are put into exile from your library and or your graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. It's just a good way to get a little bit of draw power, good creature with haste there. Lagma's Hand of Hatred. At the beginning of your combat on your turn, create a 2/1 red elemental creature token with trample and haste. Now, you'll sacrifice at the beginning of your next end step. This way, when I do get sacrifice at the end step, you do get that draw power. And if you sacrifice enough, you'll get to... Sorry, I was blanking. Search for any card that you want to have your deck. Marionette Apprentice, fabricate 1 to get a 1/1 servo token or a 1/1 counter. That's not what we care about. It's whenever a creature or artifact you control is put into a graveyard, aka all of our treasure tokens, each opponent loses life, dealing plenty of damage, potentially giving us a win there. Marionette Master for 6 mana. Whenever an artifact control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to this creature's power. If we fabricate 3, gain us 3+1/+1 counters onto this. This is a 4/6, dealing a lot of damage to our opponent. Professional Facebreaker. Another way to get some treasure tokens onto the board, has mana, so you have ways to give it haste, and you can sacrifice those treasure tokens in order to get cards off the top of your library. Prosper Tome Mail. That touch. At the beginning of your end step, exile the top card of your library, and you play a card until the end of your next turn. Yeah, just a good way to get a little bit of draw power there. And whenever you play a card from exile, create a treasure token. We like creating treasure tokens. We like using those treasure tokens to then cast cards we got off of his ability. Super helpful. Ragavan, another way to get a treasure token there, and also some cards off our opponent's deck, which will have the treasure tokens to pay for. Stormkiln Artist, another way to get some treasure tokens, and get stronger for every treasure token we have. Infinite Screwclaw, deals damage to a player. Exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. You can cast that card by discarding a card rather than paying its mana cost. So you basically get a free spell at the top of your deck. Maybe Marionette Master, maybe Zorn, because you get some additional treasure tokens there. But could be handy, especially because we have like quite a few high-cost cards in this deck. Maybe it'll be your Bolus to Citadel. Onto the enchantments. We have Alchemist Talent. Get a treasure token. Treasure tokens tap for 2. Or the main ability that we're looking for is that it'll eventually cost like 4, 6, then 11 eventually. Whenever you use treasure from mana to cast a spell, deal that much damage to each opponent, not just one. You know, potentially winning you the game just off of that. Black Market Connections, allowing us to get a treasure token at the start of every turn. Or draw some cards, get some shapeshifters. Curse of Opulence. It doesn't necessarily need to be treasure tokens. We could get gold tokens as well. Those still count for the abilities that for this ability that we're looking for. To get a split second. Reign of Riches. Get 2 treasure tokens. And if you use mana from a treasure token to cast a spell, Cascade. Okay, if you use it to cast your 5 mana thing, you'll then get a free 1 mana thing, probably. Revel in Riches. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, create a colorless treasure artifact token would sacrifice this artifact. Add 1 mana of any color. Oh, that's just what treasure token is. I don't know why I was reading that. But you get a treasure token. And at the beginning of upkeep, if you control 10 or more treasure tokens, you win the game. I mean, we win the game. How could we not want to win the game, right? But normally your opponents are going to use a card like Vandal Blast in order to get rid of all of them. On to our second half of the deck. We didn't put the lands in this one just because we were building all the Sonic decks all in one day. So I figure you guys could. I always like to say you guys can run a couple $100 worth of lands, or you guys can run $5 worth of lands. It's all up to you. Bedevel for some removal, big score. Get some treasure tokens, get some draw power. We like to see it. Cast Warp for some removal, or maybe you give your opponent the best thing off of the top of their deck. One of the two is going to happen. Dark Ritual for some mana. Deadly Dispute. Get a treasure token. Get some draw power. Get to sacrifice something. Maybe you're like Jury. Hellish Rebuke. To unturn permanents your opponent control, gain when this opponent permanent deals damage to the player who. Sorry. You cast Hellish Rebuke, sacrifice a permanent, lose 2 life. A little bit of a way to burn our opponents. Another way to actually, deal damage. Not just create treasure tokens and not have a way to win a game. Poisoning Cup. Destroy a little bit of removal here. Saw in half, create 2 copies of our best creature. Maybe it'll be our ancient Copper Dragon that we'll get 2 copies of. Or maybe our Jury that we had enough counters on in order to deal enough damage. Now we had 2 that they had to worry about. Terminate for some removal. Tibalt's Trickery for a counter spell. Counter their Vandal Blast so that they can't get rid of all of your enchantment treasure tokens. Unexpected Windfall for some draw power and some treasure tokens. Withering Torment for that removal there as well. Blasphemous Act for a board wipe. Blasphemous Edict for a board wipe. Brass's Bounty. You don't have to tap your lands for mana anymore. You can make them into treasures. I'm giving you that split second to all your cards. Call Forth the Tempest. Cascade. Getting, 2 free 1 mana spells off the top of your deck. And then Call Forward deals damage to each creature your opponent controls equal to total mana value of other spells you've cast this turn, aka the cards that you got off Cascade. Crackle of Power. Crackle of Power deals 5 times X damage to each opponent. X targets, which would probably be 3. But yeah, if we pay 3 into this, we deal 15 damage to each opponent. It can't be countered because that's split second. I see it. Hit the mother load, discover 10. Look at the cards at the top of your deck until you get something that costs 10 or less. Maybe it'll be call for 10, but you'll actually get something that's worth it. But you get true treasure tokens, or, even if you do get like not brass, man, looking for a cheap, if you get Vandal Blast, remove one artifact, but you also get 9 treasure tokens, which could be 9 treasure clues and foods if you have a candy manufacturer on the board. Inspired Tinkering, get 3 treasure tokens, and also exile top 3 cards of the library. Then you pay those cards this turn. Midgar City Mako, sacrifice a treasure, draw 2 cards. I'd see it. Rousing Refrain, add red mana for each card target opponent's hand. A little bit of extra mana helps us out in case we don't have enough from our treasures in order to get our treasures in the first place. And then Vandal Blast for that board wipe of artifacts. But that's the deck there. If you guys have any tips or recommendations, leave them down there in the comment section. I'd love to hear them. But and also make sure you like, comment, subscribe, because we're covering Knuckles, Amy, and Tails still. We'll be a great rest of the day. Welcome back to the channel. Back with our Commander deck profile with Miles, Tails, Prower. For 1 white and a blue, you get a 3/1 with flash, flying, and whenever a vehicle you control enters, draw a card if it has flying, otherwise put a flying counter onto it, making it until all our vehicles fly, because Tails is the engineer of the group, I'm pretty sure. I played Sonic Adventures 2, and he had a mech in that, so I'm pretty sure. I mean, those are vehicles. But we have plenty of vehicles in here, most of which have flying in order to get us that draw power, so we get more and more vehicles to keep on casting. Some ways to benefit off those artifacts so that we can make sure we can cast them for, less than 7 mana for stuff like Reaver Titan, and just cards that'll ruin our opponent's days while benefiting ours. But let's get into it card by card. If you guys, again, do like the video, make sure you like, comment, subscribe so you can stay tuned for future deck profiles and even watch old ones. But let's get into it. We have Aerial Surveyor is a creature with, an artifact with flying. Whenever Aerial Surveyor attacks, if defending player controls more lands than you, search the library for plains cards, put into the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. So you get that draw power, you got that land, a whole bunch of good stuff off of just 1 card. Arcane Signet for a little bit of mana ramp there as well. Cargo Ship, more draw power as it's a flying vehicle, and taps for some mana there on top of that. Since it isn't a creature, you do get to do that the turn it comes down, since it starts as just an artifact, and you'll have to crew it in order to make it into a vehicle. Cursed Totem. Activated abilities of creatures can't be activated. We don't care, because we're activating the abilities of artifacts, not creatures. Fell Warstone for some mana. Imposter Mech. This one doesn't have flying, so you don't get to draw a card. Well, wait, Curse Stone wasn't a vehicle. You may have Imposter Mech enter the battlefield to copy a creature an opponent controls, except it's a vehicle with crewdry and loses all other types and abilities. So, maybe our opponent just has, like, a super strong 6/6 or something along those lines. Crowing for 3 is worth it. Mind Link Mech. Creature with flying, so you get, a vehicle with flying, giving you that draw power off that. Whenever it becomes crewed for the first time each turn, until the end of turn, Mind Link Mech becomes a copy of target non-legendary creature that crewed at this turn. Except it's a forgery, it's a vehicle artifact in addition to its other types. Maybe we'll make it into something like SRAM on the battlefield in order to get 2 draw power every time we cast a vehicle now. Well, potentially 3 draw power if we have Miles on top. Tails. I don't know why I called him by his first name. I don't know if we're on a first name basis like that with Tails. Oh, dang it, I guess we're on a nickname basis if we're calling him Tails. Anyway, Mobilizer Mech, flying, so you get that draw power. Whenever Mobilizer Mech becomes crewed, up to 1 target vehicle you control becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. Sometimes we don't have enough creatures on board in order to crew everything, so let's find other ways to do that. Nautiloid Ship. Whenever Nautiloid Ship enters battlefield, exile target player's graveyard. Sometimes our opponent's running a very graveyard heavy deck, so let's stop them in their tracks, all while we get to draw a card off of playing this. Deals combat damage to a player. You may put a creature card exile with Nautiloid Ship onto the battlefield under your control as well. Like I said, those decks that they want to be recurring all their stuff out of their graveyard, let's recur it out of their exile zone instead. Parhelion II, 8 mana for a 5/5. Flying, first strike, vigilance, allowing us to get that draw power. One Parhelion II, create 2 4/4 angel tokens with flying, vigilance that are attacking. And they do stick around because you don't have to sacrifice them. And they could then crew Parhelion the next turn if you didn't have something to crew it quite yet. Peace Walker Colossus, 2 mana. Another target vehicle you control becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. Also, when you do crew a vehicle, it can attack the turn it comes down because it does still have summoning sickness. Same thing with making it into a creature. Prodigy was the prototype. Whenever one or more vehicles you control attack, create a 1/1 colorless pilot token. This creature can crew vehicles that those power 2 or greater. I said we're 2 greater, so aka Dre. This way you can make sure we can crew our stuff, like this, without having to worry about having to use multiple things. Or like Nautilite Ship is like one of the perfect examples. This crew Dre on there. Reaver Titan. Void Shields, protection from mana value 3 or less. Whenever Reaver Titan attacks, deal 5 damage to each opponent, giving us that little bit of burn damage there. And just a big creature that's swinging on your opponent. Salvation Engine, and also like what's it called? Protection from mana value 3 or less, meaning that it can't be targeted by like Generous Gift or some other stuff that your opponent may have. It's really just susceptible to board wipes if it is a creature. Because like if they cast a board wipe and you didn't make crew it, it's not getting removed unless they had like Vandalblast. Salvation Engine, artifacts you control get +2/+2. Like to see it. Whenever a vehicle attacks, return up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So we don't have many things like in terms of creatures, but the stuff we do have, we wanted to keep coming back so that we could keep having accrue things. Shurikai, Genesis Engine, Legendary Artifact Vehicle. Draw 2 cards, discard a card, get a pilot token, allowing us to crew stuff a little bit easier. It's also crew 8, so we're not going to tend to crew it too often. It's just the draw power that we're looking for off that, and the pilot token. Simulacrum Synthesizer enters Scry 2. Let's not get those 2 lands and get 2 different lands instead off the top of our deck. And whenever an artifact with mana value 3 or less enters the battlefield under your control, get a 0/0 colors construct artifact creature token with this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control, which we have 27 in the stack, just including the artifact column here. Sky Sovereign Console Flagship, flying, so you get to draw that card. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, deal 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls, aka removal of quite a few things. And it's only crew 3, so you get to crew with just 1 pilot token. But it's 5 mana, so you also get a Simulacrum Synthesizer off that. Smuggler's Copter, 2 mana, crew 1. Flying, so you get to draw a card. But you also get to draw a card anytime it attacks or blocks. Soul Ring for some mana. Surgeback Menace. Surgeback Menace enters the battlefield and deals damage equal to twice the number of vehicles you control to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls, aka remove 1 thing your opponent controls, because you're going to have quite a few artifacts on the board. Sorry, vehicles on the board. Talisman of Progress for some mana. Lunar Whale, a new one here from Final Fantasy. Flying, so you get to draw that card. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. As long as this card attacked this turn, you may play cards from the top of your library. You may have that additional mana. I mean, not often, but maybe because you are in Azorius. The Regalia, haste, getting you that additional land from the top of your deck. Super good card there. Doesn't have the flying, but you do get the haste off that, so you get to have it attack turn comes down. Unidentified hovership, flying, enters battlefield, exile 1 target creature with toughness 5 or less. I mean, it's not hard to find. Leaves the battlefield, return that card, but you get to draw a card, you get to remove opponent's thing. That's worth 3 mana. Unwinding Clock. This way, if we tap with all of our stuff, we want to make sure that we could also block with all of our stuff. Valor's Flagship, flying, first strike vigilance, crew 3, so it can be crewed with just 1 pilot. Whenever you cycle this card, create X 1/1 colors pilot tokens. And it crews for X and 3, so a 4 mana, you get a free 1/1. Whenever Weather Light deals combat damage to a player, look at the top 5 cards of your library, reveal a historic card, aka an artifact from among them, put it into your hand, rest on the bottom. Super fun ability, you get to draw a card, you get to get some more cards off the top of your library, all fun stuff. Sid, free flyer pilot, equipment and vehicles you control cost 1 less to cast. It's quite a few cards in the stack. During your turn, he is flying, and return target equipment or vehicle you control from your graveyard to your hand for 3. Nope, that's a 2. But yeah, we like to make sure to, if our opponent does Vandalblast, we want to make sure that we still have a way to keep playing the game at least. Cyberdrive Awakener. Other artifact creatures control have flying. I like to see that. Whenever he enters the battlefield, until end of turn, each non-creature you control becomes a artifact creature you control, base power and toughness 4/4. That's our Soul Ring. That's our vehicles. We don't have to crew them anymore. Drum Balor, flying, untap all creatures controlled during each opponent's untap step. These are no longer vehicles, so we no longer have to draw the cards off them. But yeah, untapping all our stuff, once again, super helpful, so we can still have stuff to block with. Emery, Lurker to lock. Spells cost one less cast for each artifact you control, so you're normally just paying one blue for it. But you can also cast some artifacts from your graveyard with it in order to make sure that you keep on playing the game again. Darium Sculptor, Foundry Inspector. Once again, we want to make sure that we're not paying full cost for these spells. We want to cast Soul Ring for free. Let's scroll down. Katsumasa, the Animator. Flying until end of turn, target non-creature artifact you control is an artifact creature. If it's not a vehicle, it's base power and toughness 1/1 until end of turn. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a 1/1 counter on up to 3 target non-creature artifacts. So, powering up our vehicles quite a bit. Where were we? Katori, Pilot Prodigy, vehicles you control have crew 2, which is a lot less for like some of them, like Reaver Titan, maybe. And also, at the beginning of combat on your turn, target artifact creature you control gains lifelink vigilance until end of turn. But, yep, as we were saying, Katori, Pilot Prodigy, super good card in the set. Mendicant Core Guidelight. Power equal to the number of artifacts you control, which will be quite a bit here with this deck, especially with all those vehicles we have. Start your engines, and then eventually when you keep dealing enough damage to your opponent, which, with how many flyers we have, we could eventually deal that. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, you pay 1, get another copy of it. And let's just see. Whenever a vehicle you control enters, it's not necessarily whenever you cast a vehicle spell, so Tails will still get that draw power off of it. Padim, Council of Innovations. Artifacts you control have hexproof in addition to their other abilities, and at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control an artifact with the highest mana value or tied for highest mana value, draw a card as well. A little bit of draw power there is always nice, so you keep getting more and more stuff to cast. Research Thief. Whenever an artifact creature you control deals damage to an opponent, aka all of our vehicles, you get to draw a card. So not only is it getting us that draw power off of entering, we also get it off of dealing damage. Sai, Master Doctorus. Whenever you cast an artifact, create a 1/1 Doctor, sacrifice 2 artifacts, draw a card. I mean, a little protection there. Never hurt anyone. I mean, our opponents, but not us, right? Shimmer Mirror. You may play artifact spells as though they had flash. So, your opponent's about to threaten to swing in on you. You could flash in, let's see what has crew 2. You could flash in Prodigy's Prototype, and then, use Shimmer Mirror to crew it, and you'll have enough to protect yourself. Solemn Simulacrum for a little bit of extra mana and a little bit of draw power, maybe. Sram Senior Edificer, draw a card every time we cast a vehicle spell, which that will be happening quite a bit. On to the second half of the deck. We didn't put any lands in this one, but I was about to say you could either run $100 worth of lands, a few $100 worth of lands, or you could run $20 worth of lands. It's all up to you. Swift Reconfiguration, Flash, Enchanted Creature, or Vehicle. Enchanted Permanent is a vehicle artifact with crew 5 and loses all other card types. Get rid of our opponent's best creature that they're about to swing in on us with. Make it so that it's a little bit harder to swing in on us with it. For our instance, we have an offer you can't refuse for a counterspell for a counterspell. Armed and Armored, vehicles you control become artifact creatures until end of turn. Choose a dwarf you control, attach any number of equipment you can control to it. We're not going to use the second one, really. But, making all of our vehicles into creatures allows us to swing in for some big damage. Desynchronization, return each non-land permanent to that's not historic to its owner's hand, aka anything that's not an artifact for us, or Tails. So, allowing us to deal a big wipe to our opponents and nothing to us. Dispatch, if you control 3 more artifacts, exile target creature, or tap it if you don't. I mean, we're going to tend to have 3 by the time we want to cast this. Dovin's Veto for another counterspell. Enlightened Tutor to search out one of our vehicles that we want. Generous Gift for some removal. Pet to Exile, Stroke to Midnight, Source of Posture. All the standard removal stuff. Word of Invention. Search out one of the vehicles that we want from our deck. Let's just put it right into the hand. Mech Hanger. Add 1 mana of any color to cast a vehicle spell. Let's see it. Brilliant Restoration. Return all vehicles from our graveyard to the battlefield. I mean, we don't care about them vandal blasting us. We can just get them back. Well, we do still care because it puts us quite behind Dance of Mance. Return X target artifacts and or non-aura enchantment cards with mana value X or less from your grave to the battlefield. If X is 6 or more, those permanents are 4/4 creatures in addition to their other types. You know, we no longer need to worry about them being just vehicles. They're now creatures. They have Judgment, destroy all creatures. Our vehicles are not creatures most times, so it's a board wipe our opponent and nothing to us. So we run quite a few board wipes in here. Fabricate to search out our best vehicle. From father to son, search out our second best vehicle. Organic Extinction, use our what's called vehicles cast this, and then destroy all non-artifact creatures, aka all of our opponent's stuff and none of ours. Dot cast, pay 1 mana to draw 2, because you're going to have enough artifacts normally. Time wipe, return a creature you control to its owner's hand, then destroy all creatures. I mean, we'll get to save that one creature that we normally have, maybe Tails, and then get rid of the rest. And then Voyage Home for draw 3 cards, gain 3 life for 2 mana normally. But that's the deck there. If you guys like it, as always, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, so you can stay tuned for future videos. I believe we still have to cover Amy and Knuckles, but we'll be getting to those shortly. Hope you have a great rest of the day. Welcome back to the channel. We're back on our Commander deck profile today with Amy Rose. For 2, a red and a white, we get 3/3 with haste, and whenever she attacks, attach up to 1 target equipment to her, and then another target attacking creature gets +X/+0, where X is Amy Rose's power. So we have plenty of equipment with high equip costs that we don't really care about the equip cost for, so we're just going to get them onto Amy there for free. And we're going to need at least 1 other creature attacking. So we have a lot of the things that do Living Weapon or for Mirrodin. I don't think actually we put any drop select cards in here, but there are some good ones out there if you guys do decide to run those there yourself. But that's the general overview of the deck. We're going to into card by card in a second. If you guys do like the video, make sure you like, comment, subscribe so you can stay tuned for future ones. Starting us off though, we have Arcane Signet, which will tap for 1 mana of any color. Super helpful for us. Always need some additional mana. Argentum Armor, equip creatures +6/+6, giving one of your creatures +9/+0 when Amy attacks with that equipped her. And when an equipped creature attacks, destroy target permanent. You know, really, stat boost is what we care about. Normally it's equip 6, but we don't care about that. Batterbone, Living Weapon, so you get that free extra creature. Equip creatures +1/+1, Vigilance and Lifelink. Equip 5, but once again, if that creature dies, we'll just equip it onto Amy for free. It's not going to matter. Also, Vigilance and Lifelink is super helpful, but only thing is, Vigilance works so that like when we attack, we don't tap, but Amy's already tapped and attacking when you equip this onto her, if you use her own ability for that. Batter Skull, Living Weapon, equip creatures +4/+4 and has Vigilance and Lifelink. That's a good ability we'll get both bonuses off of, giving a creature +7/+0 with Amy's secondary ability. And you pay 3 mana to return this to its owner's hand as well, and it's equip 5, but once again, don't care about that. Bitterhorn, Niece's Animus, equip creatures +1/+1, and whenever it attacks, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Once again, this is another one where we don't really care about equipping it onto Amy, because it's when it attacks, so she's already attacking and only checks for that ability once. It won't get you that if you equip it onto her for that ability. So it's more so like that Living Weapon ability so that you can get the additional 1 off of Amy Rose's secondary ability. Blackblade Reforged, equip creatures +1/+1 for each land you control. With Amy being a 4/4, this being a 2, we get this onto her for free, making her into an 8/8 if we didn't use any mana from like a land to cast her. Not land, an artifact to cast her. And that's already a +7/0 onto another creature we have. Bladehold Warwhip, equip abilities cost 1 less to activate, which that's not really what we care about. It's a double strike. And the 4 Mirrodin that we're getting off of this in order to get that additional attacking creature, that additional double strike, that additional damage to get the damage in with Amy. Bloodforged Battle Axe, equip creatures +2/+0 when it deals combat damage to a player. Create a token that's a copy of this card. It's just a pretty good stat boost there for Amy, being a 5/3 at that point, giving something else +5/+0. Buster Sword, equip creatures +3/+2. When equip creature, eventually if you get the second Bloodforged Battle Axe, that'll be +7/+0. Buster Sword though, +3/+2. Whenever a equip creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. And then you may cast a spell from your hand with mana value less than or equal to the damage without paying its mana cost. That could be quite a high spell, especially if you already have the Bloodforged Battle Axe or something on Amy, because that's +5. That's an 8 cost spell you're getting for free, which, you know, we may have a few things in here. Commander's Plate, 1 mana, +3/+3 protection from each color. It's not your commander's color identity. Equip commander for 3, equip 5. But once again, equip it for free. Since it's as you declare an attack, you get this, and then your opponent would have to declare their blockers. So they wouldn't be able to block with the creatures of those colors, aka black, blue, green. Commander Sphere for some additional mana. Dancer's Chakrams, job select, so another token there. Another thing to power up with Amy's ability. Equip creatures +2/+2 and has lifelink. Other commanders you can control get +2/+2 and lifelink as well. And is a performer in addition to its other types. Normally costs equip 3, but you know, maybe we'll equip it onto Amy, but we're going to tend to have it on a job select creature in order to have a 4/4, and then Amy being 5/5 anyway, because you don't need to have this on her, because it also benefits her anyway. Dragon Wing Glider for Mirrodin, so you get that token. Equip creatures +2/+2, flying and haste, allowing us to actually have a way to deal damage without, having to worry about your opponent blocking it, unless they have a flyer. But we have a little bit of evasion at least. Excalibur, Sword of Eden. Spell costs X less to cast, where X is the total mana value of historic permanents you control. With running 38 artifacts in this deck total, we're going to probably have enough to get this for free at a certain point. But equip creature is +10/+U until and vigilance. So if you already had this on Amy, +13/+13, and let's say we gave it the Buster Sword, that's +6/+13, giving her a 16/5. And then, you know, your opponent just blocks it 1/1. We give another creature the +16/0. Valor Stone for some mana. Glimmer Lens, we get the 4 Mirrodin token. And whenever a creature and at least one or more creatures attack, draw a card, aka that creature that you put this on, and Amy herself. Hammer of Nazan. Whenever this or another equipment enters the battlefield under your control, you may attach equipment to target creature you control, aka why equip only one thing onto Amy? Let's equip all 38. Equip creatures +2/+0 and has indestructible, and make it a little bit harder to remove with that. Helm of the Host, second copy of Amy, isn't legendary. This way we could then get the, what's it called? +X+X, and it says 2X. Hex Gold Halberd, gets first strike trample, meaning so we have a way to deal damage. You know, we'll have a lot of power, but we want to make sure we actually deal some damage. Hexplate Wallbreaker, 5 mana for the 4 Mirrodin. Equip creature is +2/+2, a little bit stat boost there for Amy. And whenever equip creature attacks, if it's the first combat, there's an additional combat phase. We like to take additional combat phases because the +X/+0 is until end of turn, so that sticks around for the second combat phase. We don't have really any other second combat phases because we had to focus so much on equipments. But you could take out some equipment, put in some extra combat spells if you want. So that is quite beneficial with aiming. Caldra Complete, Living Weapon, Indestructible, equip creatures +5/+5, Trample, Indestructible, Haste. Deals combat damage to a creature, exile that creature. Means so it doesn't get your opponent's graveyard abilities, gets you a second creature with the Living Weapon ability, Indestructible. All fun stuff there. Leyline Axe, get it for free if it's in your opening hand. Equip creatures +1/+1, double strike trample. Could be a lot of damage on your opponent you're getting off with that, especially if you have something with +X/+0 with aiming. Lightning Grease for the haste and that protection. Doesn't matter which creature you put on. You can put on Amy, but she already has haste. The protection is still nice. Lockdown Warhammer to give Amy that +3/+0, which will also give another creature +6/+0. Trample Lifelink as well to deal damage. Machinist Arsenal, another job select to get that token. Have another creature to attack with. Equip creature gets +2/+2 for each artifact or artificer you control. So that could add up to quite a bit, especially if we have all 38 equipments on the board. That'll be +76, +76. So, you know, +79, 79 with Amy. Masterwork Ingenuity. Or we get a second one and we get a +152, +152 with Masterwork Ingenuity on the board. Masterwork Ingenuity just becomes a copy of the target equipment. Mitchell Quote, Flash, Indestructible, enters the battlefield, attaches to the target legendary creature you control, gains Indestructible. We want to make sure Amy could stick around. I mean, she has haste, so like you still don't have to worry about her getting destroyed too much, but still want to keep her around soon, more rather than less. Nettle Cyst, Living Weapon to get that token. It's +1/+1 for each artifact or enchantment you control. So that +76, +76, +152, 152 is now to +190, 190. With just based upon the amount of artifacts you control. If you have all 38, Shadow Sphere. Quick creature +1/+1 has trample, lifelink, way to deal out damage, and also permanents your opponent's control lose hexproof and indestructible to end the turn if you pay an additional mana. Soul Ring for some additional mana. Sun Forger +4/+0. We like the bonuses towards attack mostly. We like seeing it. And also get an unattached for 2. Search the library for red or white. Insert a sorcery with seam C4 or less, aka your generous gift, your path to exiles, your cast warps. Anyway, cast without paying its mana cost. Shuffle your library. Swiftfoot Boots for protection and haste. Sword of Forged Frontier. +2/+2 protection from running green. Allow us that little bit of protection there on Amy, allowing her to deal damage. When it deals common damage to a player, exile top 2 cards of your library. Play them this turn. You may play an additional land this turn as well. Additional land tends to be helpful. Speaking of which, Sword the Animus for additional land as well. Talisman Conviction is for some additional mana. Aether Spark, it's a legendary artifact planeswalker. As long as it's attached to a creature, it can't be targeted by stuff. Well, your opponent can't deal combat damage to it. But eventually, if you get this onto Amy, she becomes a 4/4, and then you could have this go up to 8, -5, draw 2 cards. A lot of damage there. Reaver Cleaver, +1/+1 trample. It deals combat damage to a player. Get that many treasure tokens. It could be quite a bit, especially if you're getting a +X+0 with Amy. Duran Power Suit, +1/+1 for each equipment. It's quite a few equipments that we have here. And, yeah, a lot of damage, plus a lot of damage onto a second creature. Onto our creatures, we have Akiri, Fearless Voyager. Whenever you attack a player with one or more equipped creatures, draw a card. It's going to be Amy. But she'll have to equip something before you attack. Because it's whenever you attack. So you have to, once again, only checks it once. Whenever you unattach an equipment from a creature you control, you may unattach an equipment from a creature you control, tap that creature, it's indestructible to end the turn, so you can't block, but at least it protects Amy for a little bit longer. Arden, Intrepid Archaeologist. Why only attach one thing to Amy when we could attach everything to her? And also this attack equips stuff before she swings in, so you could do the thing before she swings. Brenor, Battlehammer. Each creature you control gets +2/+0 for each equipment attached to it. More power onto Amy, which means more power onto a second creature as well. You may pay 0 rather than paying the first equip's ability each turn. Diantha for a little bit of cost reduction on your artifacts. Freon, Wild Rose Warrior. Creatures have haste as well. And you get extra copies of all your equipments. So you have that plus Arden. Oof. Jor Kadeen. Trample, whenever Jor Kadeen attacks, it gets +X/+X. And turn where X is the number of equipped creatures you control, aka with all these ones with living weapon for Mirrodin, it cares about the amount of creatures. And then if its power is 4 or greater, draw a card. A little bit of draw power is always nice. Lizard Blades can't attach that with Amy's ability, but you could reconfigure it to give her double strike. Nahiri, Forged in Fury, affinity for equipment, making it basically cost 2 to cast for most times. And whenever an equipped creature you control attacks, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. You may cast equipment spells this way without paying their mana cost. Free Excalibur would be nice. Or, probably just a Bloodforged Battle Axe. Pure Steel Paladin. In order to equip our stuff for free, like our Colossus Hammer. Did I not put Colossus Hammer in here? I should have put Colossus Hammer in here. I just realized it's not in here. Whoops. Rayav, Master Smith, equipped creatures get double strike. Once again, another way to deal even more damage there with aiming. So we're going to win with commander damage at some point. Sram, Senior Officer, draw a card off of all the equipments that you got. And Stoneforge Mystic to get an equipment out of your deck and into your hand. And then pay 2 to get it out of your hand and into the battlefield for free. Let's scroll on over to the second half of the deck. Oh, that's right. I didn't put lands on this one quite yet. Forge Anew for an additional Forge Anew enters the battlefield. Turn target equipment from your graveyard to the battlefield. We like to see that because if we got Vandal Blast, we need a way to bring them back. As long as it's your turn, you may activate equip abilities anytime you would cast an instant, aka your opponent may think they're blocking, but they're not actually. Well, not actually blocking well enough, I should say. You may pay 0 rather than the equip cost of the first equip ability cast each turn as well. So that's a free Colossus Hammer. Get rid of something for Colossus Hammer. Your choice. Cigar's Aid, same thing with the Flash ability. Boros Charm for either removal or protection. Chaos Warp for either removal or giving your opponent the best thing out of their deck. Dispatch for a little bit of removal. Generous Gift removal. Path to Exile, Stroke to Midnight, Source Splashers, all removal. Inventory management can't be counted because it's split second. And for each ordered equipment you control, attach to the creature you control. Once again, why attach only one thing to Amy when you attach everything to it? Because then it'll just power up everything else you got. Blasphemous Act for 7 board wipes. Gold Warden's Gambit. Affinity for equipment, aka only costs 2 to cast. Create 5 2/2 red warrior rebel tokens. And for each of those tokens, you may attach an equipment to it, making it so you have not just one strong creature, but 5. Open the armory and Steel Shaper's Gift to search out your best equipments. And then Reckless Crew, create X21 Berserker creature tokens, where X is the number of vehicles you control plus the number of equipment you control. For each of those tokens, you may attach an equipment to it. AKA, each equipment now has a person that's attached to. Then you can reattach it to Amy potentially. And then, if it was the Colossus Hammer, it'll get the plus 1 and gets plus 10 plus 0. But that's the video there. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you like it, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and have a great rest of the day. Welcome back to the channel. We're back with our commander deck profile with Knuckles the Echidna. For 4 mana, you get 2/4 with Double Strike, Trample, Haste. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. And then, at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 30 or more artifacts, you win the game. So, we want to have plenty of ways to create plenty of artifacts, so you get up to 30 of them. And ways to benefit off of having those treasure tokens, so you get more and more treasure tokens in order to get up to that 30 in the first place. Also, his ability does happen whenever a creature you control deals combat damage. So I do believe with the Double Strike, it does happen twice with his ability. But yeah, we do have cards that will have trample or deal damage to our opponent with quite a big stat line, along with ways to get more and more artifacts, like I said. And also does count for each player that you deal the combat damage to. So we want to make sure that we have ways to attack each opponent as well. But that's the general overview of the deck. We're going into card by card in a second. But if you guys like the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and leave a comment on who you'd like to see in the next deck profile. Starting us off, we have Arcane Signet for some mana, which is also an artifact itself. Buster Sword, in order to get a free artifact out of our hand and onto the battlefield based upon the amount of damage we do to our opponent, giving our creatures to have the trample such as Knuckles, an even bigger stat line, or to make sure we could assure that we're dealing the damage to them. Darksteel Forge, 9 mana, but gets all your artifacts indestructible, making it so that you don't get up to 29 and are about to create that last treasure token during your opponent's end step, only for them to Vandal Blast you. Instead, they only get rid of this one, and you just have to create 2. Felwar Stone for some mana. Genji Glove. A quick creature has Double Strike, making it so you could also deal double damage to one opponent as well. And whenever a quick creature attacks, if it's the first combat, there's an additional combat phase, along with untapping that creature, making it so that you could deal some additional combat damage, some additional combat phases for that additional instance of creating a treasure token there for you. Lightning Grease for haste to make sure our creatures can attack the turn they come in. This way they don't get removed before we deal damage to our opponent and end up not being able to get that treasure token off them. Liquid Metal Torque, we get some mana, or we could tap and make something into an artifact. Maybe we're at that 29 mana. We just need, 29 artifacts. Just need one more thing. Let's make something into it. Mind Stone for some mana. Mycosynth Last. Let's make everything into an artifact if we need so many artifacts, because 30 is quite a bit. You're not going to intend to make it that high, so that's why we do have other ways to win in here, but it is fun to try. Mystic Forge. Cast artifacts from the top of your library, or pay 1 life, exile top card of your library, so that you don't keep running into the same land over and over again. And it's also cast artifact spells, so you can't play lands. Prize Statue. Enters the battlefield, get a treasure token. You're already up to 2 artifacts on the board, and it's only turn 2. I'd say that's a pretty good position to be in. And also you could sacrifice it and you still go neutral in terms of how many artifacts you're at. Sculpting Steel lets us become a copy of our best artifacts, so we get even more artifacts. Soul Ring for some mana. Stranic Resonator. It makes our triggered abilities happen a second time. So Knuckles has a pretty good one that'll create us those artifacts, or we could win the game twice if we are at that point in the game. Swiftfoot Boot for some mana. Sorry, that's not mana. That's giving things haste so they can attack the turn they come down, and making sure that we can deal a little bit of damage to our opponent, so that we can get those treasure tokens. Fire crystals, same thing with that haste enabling. One ring, we want to make sure that we have some artifacts that could stick around. This one's indestructible and also allows us to draw into our other artifacts. Reaver Cleaver, equip creatures +1/+1 trample. Whenever it deals damage to an opponent or planeswalker, create that many treasure tokens. I mean, maybe if you deal dirty damage to one person, that person's eliminated from the game, but you got the dirty treasure tokens, so you're set, and then someone Vandal Blast you. Academy Manufacturer. Anytime we create a treasure token, we get a clue and a food as well, so that we could get the additional artifact onto the battlefield for some big moves in terms of our count. Blightsteel Colossus, it's an artifact, it has trample, it's a big stat line. I mean, if we don't destroy them with Infect, we could potentially, just have this get us those treasure tokens off of Knuckles. But also giving it haste, people are not going to like it too much. Bosch, Iron Golem, trample, you sacrifice an artifact, deal damage equal to the sacrifice artifact mana value to any target, could be a player, but you're going to tend to just use the trample with the big stat line in order to get that ability with Knuckles. Bray's Apprentice. Enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 colorless adopter artifact creature token with flying. So flying is the other way we could deal damage to our opponent without having to worry about it. And sacrifice an artifact, choose one, exile top card from your library. Target creature gets +2/+0 on a turn, allowing us to deal some additional damage for our stuff that does have the trample. Burnished Heart, sacrifice it, get 2 basic lands out of your deck. Unfortunately, you can't get the artifact lands to replace this with 2 artifacts, but this is also an artifact in case you need an additional artifact on top of that. Just Gloria Flame Tyrant, 9 mana for 5/4, affinity for artifacts, so you could potentially cost as little as 3 if you have enough treasures on the board already. Flying Haste, allowing us to deal that damage, get the additional treasure there with Knuckles. And whenever this attacks, exile top 5 cards of your library, may cast an artifact spell from among them this turn. If you do, it has affinity for artifacts, aka you can get some of your artifacts for free if you have enough artifacts on board. Oops, sorry. Where were we? Yep, Goblin Engineer. Enters, search the library for an artifact card, put it into Graveyard Shuffle, pay 1 mana, get your worst artifact off of your battlefield, like probably Prize Statue, because you'll go neutral with that, in order to get probably Reaver Cleaver out of your graveyard, and equip it to something so you can get a lot of treasures. Goldspan Dragon, Flying Haste. Attacks or becomes a target of spell, create a treasure token, gets more and more treasure tokens. This way we could get more and more mana off of them because he makes them tap for 2 instead of just a 1. Hellkite Tyrant, Flying Trample, deals combat damage to player, gain control of all artifacts that player controls. They could still sacrifice their treasures, but maybe you just get a Soul Ring and an Arcane Signet, that still puts you up 2 in the artifact department. Or if you use Mycosynth Platypus, all cards that are, all permanents are artifacts in addition to their other types. So not only do you get their artifacts, you get their lands, you get their creatures, you get their enchantments, because everything is an artifact. Also, if you have what is haste, it is just mean. And at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 20 more artifacts, you win the game. Same thing with Knuckles, just you only need 20 instead of 30. Iron Mirror is an artifact that'll tap for some mana. Joyer's Familiar makes it so we could get our artifacts on board for a little bit cheaper, along with being an artifact itself. Kuldorta, Forge Master, sacrifice 3 artifacts, search your library for an artifact card, put it onto the battlefield. Okay, one of your ones that'll get you more artifacts, even just sometimes like that still puts you up in terms of how many artifacts you control, especially if you have Mycosynth Lattice, because it makes your lands into artifacts as well, which is a lot easier to get to 30 of. Liberator Urza's Battle Adopter, allowing you to cast your artifact spells with Flash. Mannequin, some additional mana, also an artifact. Mirror Battlesphere, this will be a really fun one to blink. Whenever a creature you control, when this creature you control enters, create 4 1/1 mirror artifact creature tokens. And you get some additional power with that, but we're going to keep those around in order to make sure that we have the 30 on the board. Ornithopter of Paradise, some additional mana there, along with being an artifact. Palladium Mirror, artifact for some mana. Phyrexian Triniform, really like this card in here. Whenever it dies, create 3 golems. So, it starts off as a 9/9, dealing that damage to your opponent, because you're going to have a way to give it haste, trample, or some other way. But you get go 2 positive in terms of your artifact count, getting you closer to 30. Fresh, what? I think I put Professional Facebreaker in so many of these Sonic decks. Deals common damage to a player, create a treasure token, sacrifice a treasure, exile top card of your library, maybe you'll get to your Mycosynth Platypus. Shimmer Mirror, cast your artifact spells as a head flash, like I said, most of your spells. Solemn Simulacrum, additional way to get some lands out of your deck, along with an artifact, and drawing some cards. Steel Hellkite, can get pretty strong, especially if you get to a certain amount of like treasures and you're just like, well, I just need to start swinging. And then eventually you destroy each non-land permanent with mana value extra less, whose controller was dealt damage by this creature. Wait, okay, that said just destroy all permanents, but then it says non-land. There it is. Triplicate Titan, Wormcoil Engine do the same thing that Phyrexian Triniform do, where they help you go positive in terms of the amount of artifacts you control. And Zorn, since we're going to be creating so many treasure tokens, we may as well create 2 instead of just 1 at any time. But let's scroll on over here to the second half. We have Curse of Opulence. Whenever enchanted player is attacked, each player attacking that player does the same. Sorry, you get gold tokens, so does everyone else. That attacks them. So you encourage people to attack that person to give you some gold tokens to get you closer to that 30 mana. Reign of Riches, get 2 treasure tokens. Use your treasure tokens, you get the Cascade. So you get to, maybe cast what would be a good one? Goldspan Dragon for like 5. And then you could what's it called? Cascade down into Academy Burnish Heart. Brothers War. Create 2 tap Power Stone tokens. Those are artifacts in addition to other stuff. Choose 2 players until your next turn. Each creature they control attacks the other chosen player, each combat if able. And then Brothers War deals X damage to any target and X damage to any other target, where X is the number of artifacts you control. So potentially you're dealing that 30 damage if you don't have enough, or say, if they removed your one thing, you can just deal 29 damage to them. You don't need to worry about winning the game. You'll just won the game. Big score, get some draw power, get some treasure tokens, cast warp, remove their 1/1 token, or to give them their best card out of their deck. Unexpected windfall, draw power along with some treasure tokens. Did ready, scrap savant, discard up to 2 cards to draw that many cards. Sacrifice an artifact, return target artifact from your graveyard to the battlefield. So even if they do just Vandal Blast one thing, we want to make sure we have a way to get it back. Or -10, which we'll probably not get to, where whenever an artifact is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, returns to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. And Card Great Creator, activate abilities of artifacts your opponent's control can't be activated. So, maybe they're relying on a lot on theirs. I mean, you are. We know we are. But let's make it so we benefit and they don't. Especially if we gave them all those gold tokens with Curse of Opulence. Blasphemous Act for a board wipe. Inspired Tinkering for those 3 treasure tokens. In order to get, that already puts us at 9 if we have this and Academy Manufacture on the board. Pirate's Pillage, draw 2, get some treasure tokens for that artifact count. Red Sun's Twilight, destroy up to X target artifacts if X is 5 or more. For each artifact destroyed display, create a token that's a copy of it. Those tokens gain haste. Exile them at the beginning of the next end step. Is a sorcery, so you can't really win the game off of destroying all of your opponent's artifacts. But you could win the moral victory by making it so that they don't have a Soul Ring or Arcane Signet or Talismans. Saheeli's Directive, improvise. If you have top X cards of your library, you may put any number of artifact cards with CMC X or less from among them onto the battlefield and put all cards revealed this way that weren't put onto the battlefield into your graveyard. And you can get a whole bunch of super strong cards off the top of your deck by using all those treasure tokens for something. Seize the Day, untap target creature. After its main phase, there's an additional combat phase, allowing you to swing again, get Knuckles' ability, and additional time. To just say, I have all the arts. I think Knuckles, it looks weird to me. Seize the Spoils, draw power, additional treasures. Strike it rich, additional treasure token. Trash for treasure, return target artifact from your graveyard to the battlefield. You do have to sacrifice an artifact to do that, but still, you go neutral or you go positive if you have certain ones. Vandal Blast, destroy all artifacts that aren't yours. And then Visions of Ruin. Each opponent sacrifices an artifact. For each opponent who sacrifices this way, create a treasure token. And we can flash it back in order to do it again. But that's the deck there. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you do have any questions or comments about the deck, make sure to leave down there in the comment section. I hope you have a great rest of the day. Welcome back to the channel. We're back with our Commander deck profile today with Dr. Eggman. For 2, a blue, a black, and a red, you get 3/6 with flying. But his main ability is at the beginning of your end step, draw a card, then each opponent faces a villainous choice. That player discards a card, or you may put a construct, robot, or vehicle from your hand onto the battlefield. So we have a little bit of draw power there, a little bit of a way to make our opponents face a choice of, do I put myself behind in order to stop him from getting ahead? So we do run quite a few vehicles in hopes that our opponents will, let us put those vehicles onto the battlefield. Some transformers, as those are all either constructs or robots. Some other good constructs that just have some good enter the battlefield abilities, and then just some things that'll benefit off of our opponent discarding cards in here. This way, if they do choose these time to put themselves behind it instead of putting us ahead, we can still get that benefit off that. But that's the general overview of the deck. Let's get into it card by card. Arcane Signet for a little bit of mana there. Blitzwing, Cruel Tormentor. At the beginning of your end step, target opponent loses life equal to the life that player lost this turn. No life was lost this way, convert him into Blitzwing, Adaptive Assailant, Living Metal, so he's still a creature. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose Flying or Indestructible at random, gains that ability till end of turn, and if he deals combat damage, transform him again. So, either way, a good source of damage to your opponent. Cybership. When it deals combat damage to a player, put the top 2 cards of that player's library onto the battlefield face down under our control. 2/2 Cybermen. Another way to put our opponent behind just a little bit. Doesn't need to deal combat damage, though it does have the flying, and it does put enough on the battlefield in order to crew itself again the next turn. Deluxe Dragster. Can't be blocked except by vehicles, so another way to swing in, because most people don't run too many vehicles at least. When it deals combat damage to a player, you may cast target instant sorcery from that player's graveyard without paying its mana cost. So basically a free spell, maybe an extra turn spell, depending on what we got. I mean, oftentimes the people running the extra turn spells aren't running vehicles, so that could be infinite turns for you. Well, actually, exile, never mind. Demonic Junker, affinity for artifacts, so oftentimes you're just going to play that one, or you're just going to get onto the battlefield for free with Eggman's ability. When this vehicle enters, for each player, destroy up to 1 target creature that player controls. If a creature you control was destroyed this way, put 2 1/1 counters on this vehicle. Oftentimes, it's just an easy way to destroy your opponent's stuff. Gets Grimoire. When our opponent discards a card, we draw a card. Good source of draw power there. Jackdaw. Deal combat damage to a player, discard your hand, draw that many cards. For each artifact you control, so you could potentially discard 1, draw a whole bunch, depending on how many you have. And we have 24 artifacts in this deck, just on the artifact tab here alone. Lightning Grease to make sure Eggman could swing the turn he comes in, because maybe you could get some commander damage off, but also that protection on there is nice. Mechadragon Core, exile this card, and 4 other artifact, creature, or vehicles you control. Create Mechadon, a legendary 10/10 construct artifact creature token with flying, vigilance, trample, lifelink, and haste to all colors. When token leaves the battlefield, return all cards exiled with this card onto your battlefield under your control. So it could be a potential, just a big thing to swing in on your opponents with if we have a whole bunch of things that we don't really care about keeping around for a little bit, or just things that we want the ETB abilities of again. Midnight Crusader Shuttle. When this attacks, defending player faces another villainous choice. We have quite a few villainous choices in here. We're going to go with the theme. That player sacrifices a creature, or you gain control of the creature, and untap it. Sorry, if you gain control of that creature, tap it, and then attacks that player. Yep. Novelate chip enters the battlefield, exile target player's graveyard. May deal combat damage to a player, put a creature card, exile this way onto your battlefield. Just a super good vehicle on that end, stealing from your opponent once again. Reaver Titan, another good vehicle, protection, mana value 3 or less, meaning that your opponent can target it with most forms of removal. When Reaver Titan attacks, it deals 5 damage to each opponent. Another good source of damage there, and also board wipes. It is pretty resilient too, because it's not a creature most times. Vandal Blast, you have to watch out for it with this deck a whole bunch. RMS Titanic, deal combat damage to player, sacrifice it, create that many treasure tokens, potentially 7 if your opponent doesn't block it. It's a lot of treasure tokens. Sky Sovereign Console Flagship, deal 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. A little bit of removal there for your opponent's weaker stuff. Slicer, hard muscle. Keep passing it around, keep dealing more and more damage to each of our opponents as they have to attack each other with it. Or it's transform state, first strike haste, deal combat damage to player, convert it. But it's just going to be the first side that we're just going to keep handing to our opponents because they can't attack us with it. Soul Ring, another good source of mana there. Scar Scream, power hungry. Whenever you draw a card, if you're the Monarch, target opponent loses 2 life. We're not going to really beat a Monarch too often. Whenever one or more creatures deals combat damage to you, convert Starscream. Flying, Menace Haste, deal combat damage to a player. If there's no Monarch, that player becomes the Monarch. So, yeah, pretty good ability there. Swiftfoot Boots for some additional protection on our commander. Tergrid, Guard of Fright. Whenever an opponent discards a card, we get to put that onto our battlefield, essentially. That's the only part that we really care about, because, we could steal from our opponent just a little bit more. Falcon Airship Restored. Sacrifice it, return target creature card from your grave to the battlefield when it deals combat damage to a player. Super good ability there, helping us recur our Tergrid Guard of Fright, because most people are probably going to try to remove that. Because it's either discard your card, give us that card, or, let us get Slicer onto the battlefield or something else. Not the Indomitable Rex. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So a little bit of draw power there. This way, more and more vehicles into our hand, more and more to put onto the battlefield. Regalia, more ways to search out some more mana. Thunderhawk Gunship, enters the battlefield, create two tokens with Vigilance, which is, all that you need to crew this, which is one of them. Attacking creatures gain flying till end of turn. And the Weatherlight. Deals combat damage to player, look top 5 of your library, reveal a historic card, aka one of our other vehicles, put into our hand. And this way it's even harder for our opponents to face that villainous choice going forward. For our creatures, we have Chaos Defiler. It's a construct, which has, when it enters the battlefield or dies, for each opponent choose a non-land permanent player controls, destroy 1 at random. Cityscape Leveler, another construct that we could easily get onto the battlefield there. Whenever attacks, destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent, more sources of removal there. Coalstone Gearhulk, another construct. Whenever a creature enters, put target creature card with mana value 4 or less from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Finality counter on it. Gains Menace, Death Touch, Haste. Beginning of your next end step, exile that creature. It's going to tend to be our opponent's deck because we don't really have that many things with that mana value requirement. But, a couple, but not many, and our opponents will tend to. Combustible Gearhulk, look at the top 3. Your opponents either put them into a graveyard. Your opponent either lets you Mildry, dealing a whole bunch of damage to them, or you get to draw a drain. It's also a construct, easy to get onto the battlefield there. Cybertroll, artifact creatures get hexproof, also a construct, also an easy way to make sure that our stuff can't be targeted. Cyberdrive Awakener, make all of these vehicles and all of these 24 artifacts into 4/4s with flying to swing in on our opponent. Foundry Inspector for a little bit of cost reduction there. Goldbiz Crystal Collector, beginning of your end stem, control 4 more artifacts, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, to your hand. We only have 16 creatures, but it could still come in handy, because we're going to have plenty of artifacts on the battlefield. And then your opponent loses life if you have 8 or more on the battlefield. Speaking of ways to get plenty of artifacts on the battlefield, we have Mirror Battlesphere. Enters, create 4 1/1s. Oh, also Golbez is, I think, the only one in here that does not. Oh, well, Y'shtola is in here too. As I said, I think he's one of the only ones that doesn't meet the requirement of the construct of vehicle or robot. Another easy one to get onto the battlefield with Dr. Eggman's ability. Noxious Gearhulk, another form of removal. A little bit of life gain there as well. Oil Deep Gearhulk. Once a creature enters, look at the top target player's hand. You may choose a card from it. If you do, that player discards that card, then you draw a card. Another way to make our opponent discard some cards, also a construct. So it works out really well. Is that one from... Yeah, it's also from Aether-Drift. Padim, another way to give our stuff a hexproof in order to make sure they're protected. A little bit of draw power there, making it harder for our opponent to face that villainous choice. Scrawling Crawler, which is actually, I love running this in a whole bunch of decks. I'm actually surprised it was a construct, but making your opponent take damage for drawing cards, allowing you a little bit of extra draw power there. Valley Yard. If an opponent would face a villainous choice, that player faces that choice in an additional time. We don't really care about the voting on that. But yeah, let us hit 2 constructs rather than just the 1. Dot Monitor, another construct we get onto the battlefield for a little bit more draw power. Stola Rule, why do Dr. Eggman's ability once when we can do it twice, along with also blinking a creature while we're at it. For our enchantments, we have Liliana's Crest. When our opponent discards a card, that player loses 2 life. Good way to deal some damage to our opponent for making them discard those cards. Same thing with Megram, Mirrored and Besieged. If there are 15 or more artifacts in our graveyard, target opponent loses the game. At the beginning of our end step, you know, it's a way to take one player out if we don't have anything else. Raiders Wake, when opponent discards a card, they lose 2 life. Nice to see it. And makes their opponent discard more and more cards. Adopter Spy Network, some more tokens onto the battlefield, some more draw power. And then waste not. Give us some more benefits off of our opponents discarding those cards. We like to see it. I didn't put lands in here because I never go through them anyway. But I always like to say you guys can spend $20 on lands, you can spend $100 on lands. It's all up to what you want to do. Offer you can't refuse for Counterspell, Arcane Denial, Counterspell, Mana Drain, Negate, all those are counterspells. Chaos War for some removal, Dark Ritual for some extra mana, Desynchronization, return each non-land, non-historic permanent to its owner's hand, aka all of our opponent's stuff and almost none of ours. Terminate, destroy a target creature, it can't be regenerated. Good way to source removal there. This is how it ends. Target creature's owner shuffles it into their library, faces another villainous choice, either lose 5 life, or they shuffle another creature they own into their library. Depends what they have. Could be a really hard choice. Blasphemous Act for some more board wipes there. Ensnared by Mara. Another villainous choice we have here. They exile cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card. May play the card without paying its mana cost. That player exiles the top 4 cards of their library, and Entranced by Mara deals damage equal to the total mana value of those exiled cards to that player. Oof, could be a difficult choice. Fabricate gets your favorite artifact out of your deck and into your hand. Great Intelligence Plan, draw 3 cards. Target opponent faces another villainous choice, discard 3 card, or you may play a spell from your hand without paying its mana cost. What do we want? Basically the same thing as we're going to get with Eggman anyway. Dotcast for some more draw power. Oh, sorry, their name is that. Destroy all non-artifact creatures. aka most of our opponents have, almost none of ours, except for Dr. Eggman. He's not an artifact himself, despite having that giant robot car. Toxic Deluge and Vandalblast for those board wipes. But that's the video there. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys like to see another Commander deck profile, leave it down there in the comment section. We'll do our best to get to it within the next week or two. But yeah, hope you have a great rest of the day.